Just quickly before we get into this video, this is the second time I have uploaded this video, so some of you may have already watched it, but by looking at its performance, not many of you have. And that's due to the type of content that it is. But I think it's important if you're going to get a bird of prey or have a bird of prey that you know what the diet should be. The reason I am uploading it a second time is because YouTube demonetized it and they put an age restriction on it, which means you have to put in some form of ID to be able to watch it, which means nobody did. And then I was given a tip to make the slightly more graphic scenes black and white. So I've tried that, it worked, and now it's uploaded for everybody to watch. So enjoy. Knowing what to feed a bird of prey might seem obvious, but one of the most common questions I get asked by the public and aspiring falconers is what do birds of prey eat? So maybe it's not as obvious as I first thought. And make sure to subscribe for more bird of prey related content. Preparing an animal's diet is massively important when owning exotic species. If done incorrectly, can lead to a wide array of issues such as deficiencies, metabolic diseases, generally poor condition, and even death. Some of you might be questioning, if these are falconry birds, why are they not just eating what they are catching? While it might be possible to only ever feed what your hog catches, I wouldn't suggest it. You'd have to be in the field hunting nearly every single day, and you can't guarantee that she is going to catch something every single hunting session, meaning you'd have to rely on being able to stockpile on successful days. And even if you could do this, how quickly could you defrost some of this stockpile if she didn't catch something that day? It's not particularly practical for the modern falconer, especially one that owns several birds like me, to be able to feed their birds only what they catch. Unlike many other animals that can have a hugely varied diet, birds of prey are strictly carnivorous and only survive solely on meat. Whereas most other animals will use carbohydrates and sugars in their diets for energy, birds of prey must use a process called gluconeogenesis to convert fats and proteins into energy. Now that doesn't mean that you can't give your bird of prey variation. Different types of meat and different full body carcasses can be used to introduce a variation to the diet. The meats that I feed to my birds include day-old cockerel chicks, rabbits / hares, mice and rats, quail, pigeon, shin beef, and even the occasional turkey neck. There are some meats that I don't feed to my birds, such as pork, and that's due to the increased risk of parasites such as trichinosis or roundworm. And I don't feed fish to my birds, and that's for a couple of reasons. Fish tends to degrade and lose a lot of its nutrients after it's been frozen, but the main reason is that I'm just allergic to seafood. When preparing the meals for my hogs, I don't tend to give them a varied diet on each meal. It just wouldn't be practical to get out a bunch of different meats and only use little bits of each one. Instead, I make sure there's variation from day to day. One day they could be having rabbit, the next day it could be quail, and the day after it could be rats and mice. But a large part of falconry and training birds of prey is weight management. I can't just throw one of my hawks a full rabbit's body and expect her to maintain a flying condition. The food has to be prepared. A quick disclaimer, I'm not a qualified butcher and I've never really actually been taught how to do any of this stuff. To be honest, I just use my knowledge of anatomy and kind of make it up as I go along. So if you have a better way of butchering animals, then use that. I'm not claiming to possess any kind of actual skill here, just showing you what I do. Let's start with a hare. Firstly, I make a slit down the abdomen, being careful not to cut any of the internal organs. This is so I can remove the digestive system, as this is often full of food that is no good for the birds. Next, I need to remove the hide. I pop the legs out like I'm taking a pair of tight trousers off the hare. It helps to remove the feet before doing this. Skin is then pulled away from the hare's back like it is taking off a jacket. The front legs are popped out and then I just remove the entire head. The hare's baby makers are removed with the tail and then my camera fell off and is now covered in blood. Great. I then remove the legs. I bend the hips the wrong way to pop them out of the joint and cut between the joints so I don't have to try and cut through any of the bones. I then thought about going to get an ice cream, but I didn't think my neighbours would appreciate the stench of blood, death and butchery that follows me. I then begin to break up the main body, starting by removing the pelvis, and then I remove all the internal organs left inside the body cavity. After chopping up the hare into more manageable parts, I clean up the mess and start to chop the meat up further so it can be used for training the birds. I then remove the meat from the legs. Again, I break the joint and then use the knife to slice the meat, exposing the largest bone. Using my fingers, I then separate the bone from the rest of the meat. The leg meat is then chopped up like the rest of the meat. When finished, I'm left with a large pile of rich muscle meat from the legs and body, a pile of liver rich in iron, a set of lungs, kidneys and heart muscle. This is all then divided out between flying birds, whilst a couple of the other legs are given to molting falcons. While variation is important, it's also important to match the diet to the current situation of your hawk. If your hawk is in training and building fitness, then rich and high in protein meats are important in the diet. If your bird is starting to molt, then foods higher in fat will really help to bring her into condition so that she goes for a nice and healthy molt. If you're not flying your hawk but using her for breeding, then additional supplements may be needed in her diet too. Next up is the pigeon. I start by removing the feathers. I use the keel to split the skin, almost like opening a book. The wings are also removed as they do not provide much nutritional value. Pigeons and other wild birds carry diseases such as trichomoniasis or flounce, so it's important that you remove the entire crop and head. The feet are also removed as they provide very little nutritional value to the birds. The digestive system is removed as this tends to cause quite a mess when given to the birds. The legs and pelvis are then removed from the rest of the body and chopped in half. The rest of the internal organs are removed. And then the breast meat is taken off the sternum so that it can be chopped up for the flying birds. I follow the exact same process with the quail. I I don't tend to do much with rats, as it's not a food I often feed to my birds. They tend to just be cut in half and split between a couple of the molting birds. With day-old chicks, I start by removing the yolk, as this causes quite a big mess with the birds, and the feet, as they provide very little nutrition. The chick is then chopped up into small pieces, ready for training and flying. Shin beef is simply chopped up into small pieces, ready to be used for training. Mice are given as is to the owls. With chicken wings, the meat is removed from the bone the same way as the hare's leg meat. The meat is then chopped up into small pieces and fed to the flying birds. It's important to make sure there's a good amount of casting material in your bird's diet. It's a very natural process for the birds to regurgitate anything they can't digest about 12 hours after they have eaten. By removing the food that they can't digest, it prevents them from wasting energy pushing through food that's useless to them. The casting material also works a bit like a cushion. It helps to protect their internal organs from any sharp bones or pointy bits that they might have swallowed. It also helps to clear out the crop and keep it nice and clean. As you saw, I remove a lot of the fur and the feathers from the food that I give to my birds. However, if I do give my birds a large piece of food, including a bone, then I make sure to give them bits of fur and feather to act as casting material to help with those bones. But with my flying birds, it's not something I often have to do. With the birds that are molting or on a break, they get these larger pieces of food. But with flying birds, they get day-old chicks, and these work as a really good complete diet. The day-old chicks include both the feathers and the bones that the birds naturally need in their diet, and then all of these extra meats act as supplementary on top. If you have any questions, then please leave it as a comment below. I really try to do my best to reply to every comment on all of my videos. If you enjoyed that video, then please make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And thank you for watching.